Hey everybody, welcome back to Northernlion, places binding advising AFTERBIRTH Plus. Dude, this is a big one. 30 wins in a row, potentially. Potentially 30 wins in a row. Look, I'm not going to deny we have gotten our share of Azazel. RO98RGQB. QB. That's right, sports fans. The Super Bowl's happening today. But by the time you're watching this, that will have meant that the Super Bowl happened a couple of days ago. Congratulations to either fans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Kansas City Chiefs. Congratulations. I'm rooting for a game that is good for the fans. I love when the game is good for the fans because then everybody wins. I'm rooting for everybody to win. Sorry, that was kind of insufferable. Sometimes you don't know how a bit's gonna go until you're already, midway through walking the plank, and you just gotta kind of send it. This is your classic, first Isaac episode of the week. It is a Sunday. Yesterday was my day off. I'm not gonna complain about my day off. I had a good day off, and I did some stuff that needed to be done. Most noteworthy of all is I did all the bookkeeping for 2020's taxes, which is, it's something I always, I say that I put it off, even though I literally just did it in the first week of February. It's not quite Ned Flanders level of January 1st, better get started on those taxes, Nettie. But, it's on the early side, but it's really, I've been trying to be, the older I get, the less hypocritical I want to be. And I have been a big advocate of, avoiding procrastination as often as possible. I'm almost, comically not procrastinatory. I don't know if that's even, a word, but at this point. I'm not trying to flex, right? I'm just, it took me, I used to procrastinate. As a student, I've already been in there. Let's pay penance here. As a student in high school, especially, and maybe at points in college as well, it'd be procrastinatory. But I just sort of my philosophy on procrastination is very simple. You may have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, right? If that's the case, I don't know if this necessarily applies. It might seem like some forehead advice, just do the work, but I'm just saying, if you'll excuse me here, just make sure these guys die without me getting hit. Most of my procrastination essentially came down to, laziness. Or even more than laziness, it was, and this is so much more embarrassing to admit than being lazy. It was really just the avoidance of discomfort, right? It's a habit I've worked hard to kind of pull myself out of, for sure, but I was just very anxious about experiencing any level of discomfort. And even though it's minor, there is some discomfort when you're doing your homework versus, if you were playing NHL 2K5 or whatever back in the day. But yeah, I've really come, procrastination suffers from a logical argument, it's going to take you roughly the same amount of time to do the work, no matter what. The only difference is the timing of when you do the work. If you do the work early, I'm not even going to say, if you do the work early, you're going to, you've got more time for revisions later. Because I'm one of those people that, even, the taxes are a good example. I finished looking up all, the business expenses and stuff like that, and I got it all sent over, and then Kate was like, did you include, the Xbox One in there? And I was like, you know what? You're welcome, Canadian government. I'll pay full price for that. It probably is, now, today, I'll just maybe send the email, but last night when I had finished it, in my mind I was like, it's worth it to just have it done, right? But it's really it just changes the amount of psychological stress you go through when you procrastinate, right? Honestly, just give me the stopwatch and the speed upgrade. By which I mean, if you do something soon after it's assigned, instead of right before it's due, you save yourself two things. One is the stress of believing that, possibly you're not even going to finish it in time. Oh, that's huge, man. That's huge. And then the other thing is you also don't have to deal with that bargaining phase that you go through for maybe like days or even weeks. You know, like, oh, I'll do it. I don't have to do it yet. Maybe I should do it tonight, but no, if I don't do it tonight, it's no big deal. But then I'll do it then. You know, if you just do it when you get a chance, I think it's nice, right? I also like it's comical. And again, I'm happy. Well, I should say I'm privileged to be in a position like this. You know, when I receive like a notice that like a bill is due, like an online, you know, like my hydro bill, which is what we call electricity, kind of over here. I used to like be like, oh, it's 9:30 p.m. I don't want to sign into my online banking and pay the hydro bill and blah blah blah. And then like, you know, you're like, I'll just pay it. I'll pay it tomorrow. And you just like it creates like a mental debt, right? Like you got to constantly remember at all times that, you know, oh, before, you know, like 16 days from now, I got to make sure I get that paid. Now, like, sometimes I get those emails that, like, you know, right before bed. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm paying it. It does create the opposite problem sometimes where you're like, wait a minute, did I pay that bill? Because, like, the due date is tomorrow, but it's been 44 days since I received the invoice. Anyway, it's just, you know, I'm not flexing, but, you know, that's the thing is, like, you know, I get stressed out by the process of doing taxes. I have no problem paying my fair share. It's rather that, you know, the actual process of like going through all the accounting is kind of annoying. And also, like, I don't know if anybody else is in this boat, but I like to pretend that I never spend any money. And then when I go through, like, you know, corporate and personal expenses, I'm like, what the heck? Bought like thousands of dollars in Steam games last year. All I play is Isaac. How did I spend $2,500 on Steam last year? It's crazy. Anyway, I mean the answer is that you know, you can just watch one of my streams and sometimes they'll be like, that game's $30, send it, dude. You do that, you know, once a week, you're pretty much there. Regardless, though. Forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, like I find just that the act of going through the accounting kind of stressful. Although what's weird about it is that once you like start doing it, it actually almost feels like nice. You know, you're almost like I feel like I'm like, it's like cleaning your room. You know, maybe you dread the idea of cleaning your room, but like once you get 15 or 20 minutes into it, you're like, I'm having actually a good time right now. So we should Joker card. I do want to buy Diplopia as well, if possible. Joker card, pretty trash here, but it is what it is. Secret rooms, we got 2 bombs. Could be, oh, we already found our secret room. Never mind. But yeah, so you know, I do, you know, now we'll go look for some poop because we got a chance to get Diplopia here, and we're way ahead of schedule, obviously. I do cringe sometimes when streamers are like, I'm done my taxes, because I'm like, you don't get to decide that. That's up to the government. You know? You can be done the filing part of your taxes. It could be, like, you know, 6 years later. Government could come back to you and send you, you know, a little letter that says, hey, you know that, like, $73 you wrote off in 2013, where you said it was a business dinner? Can you describe in detail the exact nature of what you were talking about? And you're like, that was a third of my lifetime ago. And they're like, well, nevertheless, I'm going to need you to pay some tax on that. And you're like, you know what? Fair played. Fair play. I think that was me, my wife, Bear Taffy, and Wife Taffy at the Cheesecake Factory. But I can't recall specifically, so you know what? Take your pound of flesh. But, yeah, I mean, it's like my most annoying chore annually, the one that weighs on my mind the most. I mean, I was talking about it with Malf yesterday, and I think he described it greatly. By the way, I'm very jealous. I mean, there's... tax is like a hot issue, right, for a lot of people. I'm about to say that I'm jealous of, like, you know, the Nordic countries for their tax system, but inevitably, like, they pay a higher effective tax rate, so, you know, there's things to not be jealous about, I suppose, as well. But then again, they also get access to a broader array of social services, and, you know, their education is in many ways not just like paid for, but actually sometimes they pay you to go to university, which seems super backwards until you realize that, you know, if you go to university, you know, you're probably going to become, you know, a higher earner in some situations at least, which will lead to you being like a better taxpayer for the government to begin with. But anyway, I'm just, you know, it's one of the most complicated political issues for a lot of people anyway. But I'm very jealous of the fact that it seems like in, you know, Norway and Sweden, etc., etc., the government just kind of takes your money. And I mean, you know, not everybody's going to agree with this statement, I guess, but, and then, you know, they basically like send you a form where they're like, we did your taxes for you. If you have any disputes, please let us know, but this is what we think you owe. You know, you probably end up paying more as a result of that, but to not have to deal with the stress of actually filing is nice. And I mean, like, this is not trying to be a flex, but it's very strange to me that, like, you know, the tax code is set up the way it's set up, and, you know, that necessitates, or at least incentivizes, you know, the industry of, you know, tax accountants and stuff like that. Just seems to me like it's simplified tax code that led to more of that money finding its way directly into the hands of Canadian citizens in need. And like, okay, I'm not trying to get into it, I'm just saying, but I think Malf described it very well. Whether it's correct or not, he described the way that I think a lot of people feel about taxes, myself included, which is, you know, even though we're not trying to trick the government or get one over on them, every year it feels like you're just filling out a form, and if you do it wrong, you go to jail. I don't think you would actually go to jail unless, you know, you deliberately did something, you know, pretty egregious, but, you know, that I'm like, you got the numbers, because if I filed my taxes and was like, you know, I made $4 this year, you're gonna be like, no, you didn't. You got the numbers over there. You got an idea of what they're supposed to look like. Why don't you just tell me what you think I should pay, and then I'll write you a check. And then I'll, you know, it's, anyway, like, I don't know, I'm probably oversimplifying it, but I'm happy to be done with it. So that was, you know, how I spent my, you know, a few hours on Saturday, but it's all, you know, it's got to be done, and it's always nice to have it done is the other thing. Let me just peer out my door here. Oh, I see what, yeah, lunches are getting delivered today. Ooh, baby. Hello. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, as it has been brought to my attention mid-video, I will pause the video to get it. And we're back. So yeah, that was like, I mean, obviously a big part of my Saturday. Just getting that done, getting it done right. Apart from that, pretty low-key. We went for a little walk. Because again, that's the extent of travel during the pandemic for sure. Went for a little bit of a walk. I got a cheddar jalapeno scone, and I ate it, and that was pretty much my day. I kind of like passively watched the Vancouver Canucks get absolutely destroyed. We're now at the level, like the team. You know, it's not a sports bit, I guess, so we're not going to go on it for too much because I know it annoys people, but the team had some swagger last year. Felt nice. After multiple years of being kind of like, I don't know if you know what being a sports fan on Reddit is like, but when you get dummied by like a better team, that team's insecure fans come to your subreddit and they go like, hey, wow, good game, Canucks bros. You guys really had us scared for a minute there, even though we won 6-3. You guys are gonna be scary. Oh, I hope you're rooting for us in the rest of... No, I hope your team loses every game. It's the way it should be in sports. There should be some acrimony. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm being facetious, but kind of that's how I feel. Whether or not I should feel that way is another question altogether, right? Last year, Canucks were the strongest performing Canadian team in the bubble, in the playoffs. Had a little bit of swagger. All of a sudden, you know, we're back, baby. 3 or 4 years of being kind of laughed at, and now, like, look at this. We got the, you know, Swedish mega mind, Elias Pettersson, We got the second best puck-moving defenseman in the league, Quinn Hughes, because Cale Makar, I gotta admit, he's doing some great stuff. Mind you, he's on a team that's about 10 times better, but anyway. You know, we got Bo Horvat has activated dad mode. He's scoring 17 goals a game, like, it's crazy. And I was excited to kind of, like, be hated again this year. And then, you know, it turns out our team is garbage. And we're back to, like, oh, I feel so sympathetic for... Oh, those Canucks fans, they waited so long to have a good team, and now they're back in the basement. You just gotta feel for them. Oh, did we win another game against them? Oh, tough luck, Canucks bros. The league's better when you're good. Okay, why don't you just go... You know, what, you can't get enough, like, sports media focused on the Toronto market? Have you tried turning on, like, your television to any channel on planet Earth? Like, it's crazy, man. You don't get to join in our misery, okay? Until you live, well, I guess you live through your own, you know, unique era of misery. So you know what it's like. Good game, Leafs bros. Oh, when your young core gets up there, you're gonna be mighty scared. I guess it's just a cycle, you know? It's just a dang cycle. I'm not actually sore about it, you know? I think, like... I mean, like, essentially... Hold on. Yes. I don't think we need Eye of Belial. I don't even know if it does anything for us. This is now, like... It's one of the easiest wins you could ever ask for at this point. I say this without trying to be, offensive. It comes across as offensive when I say it. Not in like a, you know, like a super spicy way, but I talk about this on stream sometimes. This, like, you know, the things that stress you out, like, that are... Let me put it this way, okay? It happens with streamers all the time. Let's turn the lens inwards, and then we'll use that as a reflection to teach a life lesson in the way I see it, at least. Streamers, it's a pretty easy job, but you deal with a lot of stuff, you know? And in some ways, you kind of deal with other people's problems as well, you know? Like, I've said before, the vast majority of stress of my job really comes from other people, to some extent, not being able to manage the stress in their own lives. Like, there's no secret that, you know, the people who are, like, rudest online, for the most part, they tend to have kind of, like... okay, maybe it is offensive, but they tend to have a certain level of misery or discontent themselves, and their inability to manage that in healthy ways leads to destructive outlets like being an a-hole online, right? There's very... I've never met someone in real life and been like, oh, wow, they're like a super nice person and they're like really positive and look, they got a lot of stuff going for them in their life. Oh, and then as a hobby, they're just like a complete jerk online, right? Like, it very rarely happens. I'm assuming. I've never actually experienced it, so it might be zero, but even as a streamer, you know, like, I find myself, I get bothered more the smaller my world is, you know? The less I leave my house, which of course has been exacerbated by the, you know, pandemic, the less hobbies I have going on, you know? Even, like, it sounds crazy, but, like, the less, like, domestic work I have to do, the more wrapped up I get in, you know, my world being about the size of my monitor. And things that, you know, might not bother me when I'm, like, more interested in a hobby or when I'm busy or blah, blah, blah. You know, the brain has a tendency to kind of, like, fixate on that stuff. It's kind of how I feel about, like sports. You know, I wouldn't say, like, a Canucks game could ever, like, ruin my day. But, you know, definitely before we had our kid, it kind of... I wouldn't say it, like, weighs on your mind, but, you know, it can sour you for, like, half an hour after the game. Man, oh man, I can't believe the Canucks played so bad. What were they think? Now, like, the Canucks, they've had, like, a terrible start to the season. For the most part, at least. Where are we here? Necropolis 2? We'll just pop it. And I see the Canucks subreddit is, like, you know, melting down as it has a tendency to do, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, you know what? If they're trash, okay, whatever. They're trash this year. No big deal. Live with it. You know, it's still nice to watch them, like, hit the frozen disc from time to time. We were supposed to be better this year, but, you know, I'm sure they're trying their best. They might just be under-equipped, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, come on, man, how are we supposed to stop Austin Matthews? He's really good. You want Jalen Chatfield to stop Austin Matthews? Like, what were you expecting? He's going to just become, like, the greatest defenseman in NHL history overnight? Like, doesn't make any sense. I actually don't want that Eternal Heart. And this kind of, you know, because I see, people will laugh about that, by the way, and they'll be like, wow, allowing sports to, like, ruin your mood, forehead, whoa, yeah. But then, like, you know, and I'm not saying it's you, it's, like, the royal you. But, like, the people who complain about what I consider to be like minor content stuff, you know, like, you know, hey, I love the 3-hour stream you did here, but like this one like 45-second period of it, I was like not offended, but I was bored out of my mind, you know. And then like you go look at their post history, they're letting all sorts of stuff ruin their day, you know. Critical Role, you know, what somebody said about Darling and the Franks or whatever. Like, and it's not to punch down and be like, you know, anime fans, am I right? It's much more to be like, you know, I think everybody's got a tendency to let the stuff that you know, you get involved in a hobby or like in a piece of, you know, entertainment or something like that because you want to be entertained, but then like, you know, and you got to remember it's in your leisure time, right? But then the more time that, you know, goes on, you know, maybe that's like all you're doing that day. And if that's all you're doing that day, then obviously any kind of like turbulence in it is like, this is unacceptable and people have got to hear about it, you know? That's why I'm always like, you know, I go through phases of tilt and untilt. I'm in a slightly tiltable phase right now, and I honestly, you know, I'm just trying to be kind to myself. I think it's pandemic related, you know? The inability... Yeah, as well insulated as I am to the effects of isolation in the pandemic, because, you know, I'm an introvert to begin with, and, you know, I don't live alone, and, you know, yada, yada, yada. It's been a long time, man. You're just, like, inside for, like, it's been, like, a year, basically, since quarantine started, right? I could live like this for the rest of my life. There will be, like, some psychological impacts. Be a little bit more on edge sometimes. So even, like, my world has gotten smaller. You know, I take criticism more seriously than I should, and, you know, when people are a little bit rude, I lose sight of the fact sometimes that most of them, a very, very small percentage of them are just like, you know, abject trolls. The larger percentage of them are actually, like, big fans of the content. They get mildly annoyed by something and really type up criticism almost as a joke, and then when it gets taken seriously, they're like, what? My joke got taken seriously? And, you know, then they get mad, and I'm like, what, you're being an a-hole, and then I called you an a-hole, and you're getting mad, and it's this whole, like, washing machine spin cycle of, like, you know, everybody, I think, is a little bit on edge as a result of it. But yeah, so I always say, like, you know, if you're a streamer, or if you, like, you know, if you earn your living online and are subject to the whims of, you know, anonymous critics every single day, you gotta get out of that. You gotta get a hobby. I see it happen time and time again. I'm not the best streamer for ignoring feedback, for sure. I think that it's something I could always do better on. But, you know, some streamers that you can tell, like, and I don't even mean it in, like, a super negative way. But essentially their life is, like, you know, wake up, stream 12 hours, eat dinner, watch a movie, fall asleep, repeat the same thing the next day. You created a very small world, and you know, it's your right, don't get me wrong, but, you know, don't be surprised at that point when you're like, why do little things have me have me getting upset? Because they're not little things, you know. When your world is the size of a beach, you know, if somebody steps on your sandcastle, you're going to be a little bit annoyed. You ever? I like the expression that, like, idle hands are the devil's plaything. I don't think that's true to a great extent. Like, I think it's normally, like, when people say idle hands are the devil's plaything, it's like you got to keep someone busy so they don't get into trouble. But I do believe, to some extent, that that's true depending on your personality. Especially, like, and I can only speak, you know, within the industry that I'm working in, right? But I feel like the busier I am, the better I deal with criticism, simply because I'm not seeking it out as often. I think an idle brain is the devil's playground, is what I'm trying to say. I think there's something to be said about, you know, some merit in in labor. And it doesn't have to be, like, at a job. I mean, like, you know, and this is, again, like, I apply it to myself as well. With what little free time I have, I would be much better served by, like, getting into yoga or something like that instead of just, like, you know, I don't know, going to the subreddit. Maybe I'll take myself up on that in the future. I don't know. It's a constant journey of self-discovery, you know? I wouldn't say I got everything figured out. Maybe a few things, but certainly not everything. And even the things I've got figured out are really only figured out for me and me alone, I think. I don't know how universal any of the lessons would be, but I'm going to tell them regardless. Excuse me, I feel slightly ripped off. I assumed that Azazel Epic Fetus would give us the Brimstone Epic Fetus, but it does not give us the Brimstone Epic Fetus. Which, I mean, it does make sense, because we don't have Brimstone, right? Like, we're Azazel. That's just how Azazel shoots. He doesn't have to have Brimstone to have that kind of tier effect. That being said, I actually think that we have, actually, like, nerfed ourselves. We are going to take a hit here. Yeah, just a little too fast, but that's okay. I think we've nerfed ourselves a little bit with this Epic Fetus pickup. Something you're not going to hear that often, but let's also be, you know, realistic. I think it's pretty clear we're going to make it to the end. This will be 30 wins in a row, and we solved the main problem that you oftentimes have with Azazel, which is a low range stat. You know, you got to get too close to the enemies. Leads to potential disaster. Not this time. Not this time. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that, you know? And I think, you know, as you might think, because I kind of started it as like, oh, it's an instructive lesson for chat. Like, if you find yourself getting riled up by, like, he's playing too much Valorant and not enough German game shows, you know? That's probably a sign that, you know, maybe... And I know how this sounds, like, it sounds very kind of elitist, but, you know, maybe, like, cultivate, like, a second hobby. Not even in a negative way, just in a way, like, I think, you know, for your own happiness, I think, you know, having a diverse series of interests would lead to you caring about the things that are important more often, and in my opinion, not worrying about the stuff that's kind of, you know, don't sweat the small stuff, right? But also, I think it's a good lesson for myself. I think that's it. I've turned the lens inwards. Mission accomplished. But anyway, that's 30 wins in a row. Very short one today, but we'll be back tomorrow, of course. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button. Helps out a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching. And remember, I am live 11 to 4, a.m. to p.m. Twitch.tv/Northernlion every day but Saturday. Hope to see you over there. Give me a follow. Then it'll pop up like on your cell phone, even when you don't want it. It'll pop up and be like, hey, here's your this guy's live. See you then.